Peace be upon you. My name's Johanse Trillion. This is far as I can tell, episode 12. And I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna call this. Really, this is a continuation about thought adjusters, but we are delving into a little different territory. So for now, I'm gonna just call this soul food, because that's what this is. And so, we've been talking about thought adjusters. Last episode was wholly dedicated to thought adjusters, that spirit in our mind, that fragment of deity that exists within us all. And we're going to talk about it a little bit more because in the near future, see, this concept got to be hammered home because we finna talk about somebody who utilized their thought adjuster to the fullest on this earth and did some, words can't explain some of the things he really did and accomplished. And we're gonna get into this. So, oddly enough, though, we got the same powers within us. So, yeah, we gotta reiterate what's truly going on inside us. So I'm gonna pull from paper 110, and it's called Relation of Adjusters to Individual Mortals. I'm just gonna jump right in. The endowment of imperfect beings with freedom entails inevitable tragedy, and it is the nature of the perfect ancestral deity to universally and affectionately share these sufferings in loving companionship. In short, they told you God is with you through all this. That's what they just said. As far as I am conversant with the affairs of the universe, I regard the love and devotion of a thought adjuster as the most truly divine affection in all creation. The love of the sons in their ministry to the races is superb, but the devotion of an adjuster to the individual is touchingly sublime, divinely fatherlike. The Paradise Father has apparently reserved this form of personal contact with his individual creatures as an exclusive creator prerogative, and there is nothing in all the universe of universes exactly comparable to the marvelous ministry of these impersonal entities that so fascinatingly indwell the children of the evolutionary planets. Throughout all creation, which we can't even begin to fathom. We can just say the words. But throughout all creation, nothing is more meaningful than this relationship that the adjuster has with an individual. Part 1. Indwelling the mortal mind. Adjusters should not be thought of as living in the material brains of human beings. They are not organic parts of the physical creatures of the realms. The thought adjuster may more properly be envisaged as indwelling the mortal mind of man rather than as existing within the confines of a single physical organ. And indirectly and unrecognized, the adjuster is constantly communicating with the human subject, especially during those sublime experiences of the worshipful contact of mind with spirit in the superconsciousness. So, adjusters are in the mind, and your mind is not necessarily, it's not your brain. That's a part of this, body. And while the mind is dependent upon the brain, they're still separate. And the adjuster indwells the mind, that immaterial part. I wish it were possible for me to help evolving mortals to achieve a better understanding and attain a fuller appreciation of the unselfish and superb work of the adjusters living within them, who are so devoutly faithful to the task of fostering man's spiritual welfare. These monitors are efficient ministers to the higher phases of men's minds. They are wise and experienced manipulators of the spiritual potential of the human intellect. These heavenly helpers are dedicated to the stupendous task of guiding you safely inward and upward to the celestial haven of happiness. These tireless toilers are consecrated to the future personification of the triumph of divine truth in your life everlasting. They are the watchful workers who pilot the God conscious human mind away from the shoals of evil while expertly guiding the evolving soul of man toward the divine harbors of perfection on far distant and eternal shores. I'm going to skip down a little bit. The adjuster remains with you in all disaster and through every sickness, which does not wholly destroy the mentality, but how unkind knowingly to defile or otherwise deliberately to pollute the physical body, which must serve as the earthly tabernacle of this marvelous gift from God. All physical poisons greatly retard the efforts of the adjuster to exalt the material mind, while the mental poisons of fear, anger, envy, jealousy, suspicion, and intolerance likewise tremendously interfere with the spiritual progress of the evolving soul. Today, you are passing through the period of the courtship of your adjuster. And if you only prove faithful to the trust reposed in you by the divine spirit who seeks your mind and soul in eternal union, there will eventually ensue that Morancha oneness, that supernal harmony, that cosmic coordination, that divine attunement, that celestial fusion, that never ending blending of identity, that oneness of being which is so perfect and final that even the most experienced personalities can never segregate or recognize as separate identities the fusion partners, mortal man and divine adjuster. They're just alluding to the fact how in the future of your soul, the possibility exists for you to be, they call it fusion with your adjuster, with God. Fusion, you're one. And God has found expression, unique expression through you. So your adjuster, they also call it personalized. Yeah. I'm gonna go to part 2 and read a little bit of it. When thought adjusters indwell human minds, they bring with them the model careers, the ideal lives as determined and foreordained by themselves in the personalized adjusters of divinity. Skip. Thus, they begin work with a definite and predetermined plan for the intellectual and spiritual development of their human subjects. But it is not incumbent upon any human being to accept this plan. We talked about in the last episode how before an adjuster indwells you, like they know who you are inside and out already and who you're projected to be just from your ancestors, so to say. You are all subjects. Man, listen, you are all subjects of predestination, but it is not foreordained that you must accept this divine predestination. You are at full liberty to reject any part or all of the thought adjusters program. It is their mission to effect such mind changes and to make such spiritual adjustments as you may willingly and intelligently authorize, to the end that they may gain more influence over the personality directionization. But under no circumstances do these divine monitors ever take advantage of you or in any way arbitrarily influence you in your choices and decisions. The adjusters respect your sovereignty of personality. They are always subservient to your will. And that's free will in a nutshell. Hmm. It's a lot, and just for the sake of time and some of it being dense, I just got to skip around a little bit. But again, this is paper 110 out the Urantia papers. Relation of adjusters to individual mortals. I'm going to go down to part 3. Cooperation with the adjuster. The success of, and I've skipped down already, but the success of your adjuster is in the enterprise of piloting you through the mortal life and bringing about your survival depends not so much on the theories of your beliefs as upon your decisions, determinations, and steadfast faith. All these movements of personality growth become powerful influences, aiding in your advancement because they help you to cooperate with the adjuster. They assist you in ceasing to resist. Thought adjusters succeed or apparently fail in their terrestrial undertakings just insofar as mortals succeed or fail to cooperate with the scheme whereby they are to be advanced along the ascending path of perfection attainment. The secret of survival is wrapped up in the supreme human desire to be godlike and in the associated willingness to do and be any and all things which are essential to the final attainment of that overmastering desire. When we speak of an adjuster's success or failure, we are speaking in terms of human survival. Adjusters never fail. They are of the divine essence and they always emerge triumphant in each of their undertakings. As I mentioned before, some adjusters are seasoned more so than others because they indwelled a personality somewhere throughout the universe, somewhere in eternity, and that personality, this being, decide they didn't want to proceed for whatever reason. They just didn't survive, so to say. With them, survival is everything. This is what they term is survival. Survival is forever. And so for those that choose not to survive, then that adjuster leaves and goes back to divinity. Again, that sphere around paradise where all adjusters come from. But it goes back with experience because even is nothing, as they say repeatedly, that nothing can take the place of experience, even for God, so to say. it's it's hard, man, to wrap your brain around this. It's a lot of paradoxes and things we just really can't, you know. Well, for me, that's interesting. But anyway, let me skip down to this paragraph. I cannot but observe that so many of you spend so much time and thought on mere trifles of living, while you almost wholly overlook the more essential realities of everlasting import, those very accomplishments which are concerned with the development of a more harmonious working agreement between you and your adjusters. The great goal of human existence is to attune to the divinity of the indwelling adjuster. The great achievement of mortal life is the attainment of a true and understanding consecration to the eternal aims of the divine spirit who waits and works within your mind. But a devoted and determined effort to realize eternal destiny is wholly compatible with a lighthearted and joyous life and with a successful and honorable career on earth. cooperation with the thought adjuster does not entail self-torture, mock piety, or hypocritical and ostentatious self-abasement. The ideal life is one of loving service rather than an existence of fearful apprehension. So yeah, you can kick it doing God's will. I'm living proof. I'm gonna skip a little bit. I'm actually gonna just go to the other paper because it's a lot. I'm probably gonna go into with this other paper out of paper 111, the adjuster and the soul. Yeah, I mean they do go on to talk a little bit before 111. Still in 110, they talk about erroneous concepts of adjuster guidance. Like they touch on dreams and what happens when we sleep, and how at times the adjuster does try to reach out in your dreams, so to say. But they also go on to say, our minds, we're so material and worldly, and it essentially just kind of fucked up in so many ways that the adjuster finds it a little bit hard to get through our animalistic tendency. But to go on to paper 111, the adjuster and the soul. The presence of the divine adjuster in the human mind makes it forever impossible for either science or philosophy to attain a satisfactory comprehension of the evolving soul of the human personality. The Marancha soul is the child of the universe and may be really known only through cosmic insight and spiritual discovery. So that's pretty self-explanatory, but I got news for people who, think some scientist in a lab coat is finna. If you waiting on some scientist in a lab coat to tell you God is real, you'll never figure this out because you're looking for the wrong thing in the wrong realm. Science has its place, most definitely, but science can only cover the material. And when you start speaking of the immaterial, that's that ain't your realm no more, as far as science is concerned. So what they are saying is, the thought adjuster, God inside of us will never be discovered by science, ever, because it supersedes science. This is above science. The concept of a soul and of an indwelling spirit is not new to Urantia. It has frequently appeared in the various systems of planetary beliefs. And again, it's paper 111, and they go on to list, different people's inhabitants of this planet, from Egyptians to here the Chinese. They speak on people's takes on what the soul is, just pretty much saying it's not a man's been thought that there was something more going on with him besides this material body. And it's a lot of different civilizations and societies that can attest to that. So they just go on to list them. Now, part one, the mind arena of choice. It's got some heavy game to it. Though the work of adjusters is spiritual in nature, they must perforce do all their work upon an intellectual foundation. Mind is the human soil from which the spirit monitor must evolve the Marancha soul with the cooperation of the indwelt personality. What they're saying is all of this, your spiritual progression, your soul's progression is going to take place within your mind. That's where all this happens. Like it ain't in your heart or no physical place. Material mind is the arena in which human personalities live, are self-conscious, make decisions, choose God or forsake him, eternalize or destroy themselves. Now they do say material mind, but when they speak of material mind, they're pretty much just saying uh, a human mind, like the human aspect of our mind, in as opposed to the divine. So that's material mind. Material evolution has provided you a life machine, your body. The Father Himself has endowed you with the purest spirit reality known in the universe, your thought adjuster. But into your hands, subject to your own decisions, has been given mind, and it is by mind that you live or die. It is within this mind and with this mind that you make those moral decisions which enable you to achieve a juster likeness, and that is God likeness. Mortal mind is a temporary intellect system loaned to human beings for use during a material lifetime. And as they use this mind, they are either accepting or rejecting the potential of eternal existence. Mind is about all you have of universe reality that is subject to your will, and the soul, the Marancha self, will faithfully portray the harvest of the temporal decisions which the mortal self is making. Bro, yo, this is a human consciousness rests gently upon the electrochemical mechanism below and delicately touches the spirit Morancha energy system above. Of neither of these two systems is the human being ever completely conscious in his mortal life. Therefore, must he work in mind, of which he is conscious. And it is not so much what mind comprehends as what mind desires to comprehend that ensures survival. It is not so much what mind is like as what mind is striving to be like that constitutes spirit identification. It is not so much that man is conscious of God as that man yearns for God. That results in universe ascension. What you are today is not so important as what you are becoming day by day and in eternity. They drop a word on you every now and then. For real, for real. Mind is your ship. The adjuster is your pilot. The human will is captain. The master of the mortal vessel should have the wisdom to trust the divine pilot to guide the ascending soul into the Marancha harbors of eternal survival. Only by selfishness, slothfulness, and sinfulness can the will of man reject the guidance of such a loving pilot and eventually wreck the mortal career upon the evil souls of rejected mercy and upon the rocks of embraced sin. With your consent, this faithful pilot will safely carry you across the barriers of time and the handicaps of space to the very source of the divine mind and on, beyond, even to the paradise father of adjusters. So this is going to be part 2, nature of the soul. And I got to skip off rip. The human personality is identified with mind and spirit held together in functional relationship by life in a material body. This functioning relationship of such mind and spirit does not result in some combination of the qualities or attributes of mind and spirit, but rather in an entirely new, original, and unique universe value of potentially eternal endurance. The soul. There are 3 and not 2 factors in the evolutionary creation of such an immortal soul. These 3 antecedents of the Marancha human soul are 1. So what they saying, these are the three things you had to have before the emergence of a soul. These already going to be in play. One, the human mind and all cosmic influences antecedent and impinging thereon. Two, the divine spirit indwelling this human mind. So there's one, you need a human mind. You need a divine spirit that indwells this human mind. Three, the relationship between material mind and divine spirit, which connotes a value and carries a meaning not found in either of the contributing factors to such an association. The reality of this unique relationship is neither material nor spiritual, but morontial. It is the soul. So again, I've said that word since the beginning as well, morontia, this realm that our soul inhabits, this intervening space between pure spirit and the material realm. And so, yo, I don't know, that made sense to me. That's, not to even get sidetracked, but it's kind of like, man, it's 2022, damn near. Like, man is about lost as ever, all over the place. You know what I mean? Everybody got their own opinions, got their own views, and it really is like almost from another man. It's like this ain't even the information age, it's the misinformation age. And it's nothing sturdy out here. You know what I mean? And when it comes from a information standpoint, like it's not a lot of sturdy ground out here, and it's a lot of shady sources. So I say all that to say, like, man, what you got? Like, I ain't even started getting into it with what these papers contain, bro. It's like a treasure trove of information. Like, that's really, and this is the more I deal with it, the more valuable it becomes. It's like, it's really, bro, like I feel like I'm sticking my fingers through jewels. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it just don't end. You can just keep digging and coming up with jewels after jewels. And it's crazy. So all that to say, what you got if this ain't it? A little sidetrack, man. Sometimes I just know how folk be thinking. And I'm sincere. Like, what do you have as far as one little container of information that can damn near explain everything that a man can think of? Because this damn near can. It really can. And so I'm saying, as far as one container, one repository of information, what you got if this ain't it? Part 3, the evolving soul. The mistakes of mortal mind and the errors of human conduct may markedly delay the evolution of the soul, although they cannot inhibit such a morontia phenomenon when once it has been initiated by the indwelling adjuster with the consent of the creature will. But at any time prior to mortal death, the same material and human will is empowered to rescind such a choice and to reject survival. Even after the survival, the ascending mortal still retains the prerogative of choosing to reject eternal life at any time before fusion with the adjuster. And again, fusion, that's becoming one. Who you are, your personality, the essence of your entire being, aside from the spirit. Like what he gave you to, because it's your choice. You can do what you want with your personality. That's what they refer to, like the whole essence of a human being. They pretty much just say your personality. So, and when you fuse this with that spirit, it's fusion. But it's on you, man. You can reject this. That's what tripped me out the most, probably. Like, damn, it's still your choice. It's it's an amazing paradox, bro. That you got the choice to reject the creator. Ain't that some shit? Couldn't be me though. Fusion with the adjuster signalizes the fact that the ascending mortal has eternally and unreservedly chosen to do the Father's will. I'm gonna skip down a little bit to the part 4 called the inner life. Recognition is the intellectual process of fitting the sensory impressions received from the external world into the memory patterns of the individual. Understanding connotes that these recognized sensory impressions and their associated memory patterns have become integrated or organized into a dynamic network of principles. So they're talking about like recognition just as a human being, what you recognize. Meanings are derived from a combination of recognition and understanding. Meanings are non-existent in a wholly sensory material world. Meanings and values are only perceived in the inner or supermaterial spheres of human experience. Basically, you can't derive a meaning from some, like, if we were just automatons or relying strictly on our material energy, you couldn't come up with meanings of things. You couldn't establish the value of things strictly from a purely material standpoint. So it takes this inner life where the mind resides to make sense of everything, of this whole environment. The advances of true civilization, wait a minute. I don't know if I said it already or not, but I'm gonna say it again. Meanings are derived from a combination of recognition and understanding. Meanings are non-existent in a wholly sensory or material world. Meanings and values are only perceived in the inner or supermaterial spheres of human experience. The advances of true civilization are all born in this inner world of mankind. It is only the inner life that is truly creative. Civilization can hardly progress when the majority of the youth of any generation devote their interests and energies to the materialistic pursuits of the sensory or outer world. Gonna skip down some. Few little paragraphs. You cannot completely control the external world environment. It is the creativity of the inner world that is most subject to your direction because there your personality is so largely liberated from the fetters of the laws of antecedent causation. There is associated with personality a limited sovereignty of will. What they just said is it's a lot of things outside your control. And the only thing you really can control is your mind. And this all takes place within your inner world that we all have. Um, I'll probably close it out with these. Part 4. This is the end of part 4. This is the problem. If free will man is endowed with the powers of creativity in the inner man, then must we assume that free will creativity embraces the potential of free will destructivity. And when creativity is turned to destructivity, you are face to face with the devastation of evil and sin, oppression, war, and destruction. Evil is a partiality of creativity which tends towards disintegration and eventual destruction. So yeah, I mean, again, they laying it out. They laying out this whole dilemma that we seem to face on a world such as ours, where people can do wrong, people are evil, but that comes with the territory of free will creatures. If you could be creative, you can also be destructive at the same time. Inner creativity contributes to ennoblement of character through personality integration and selfhood unification. It is forever true. The past is unchangeable. Only the future can be changed by the ministry of the present creativity of the inner self. I'm probably read a good chunk of part 5. We winding down though. Part 5, the consecration of choice. The doing of the will of God is nothing more or less than an exhibition of creature willingness to share the inner life with God, with the very God who has made such a creature life of inner meaning value possible. Sharing is God-like, divine. God shares all with the eternal Son and the infinite Spirit, while they in turn share all things with the divine sons and spirit daughters of the universes. The imitation of God is the key to perfection. The doing of his will is the secret of survival and of perfection in survival. Mortals live in God, and so God has willed to live in mortals. As men trust themselves to him, so has he, and first trusted a part of himself to be with men, has consented to live in men and to indwell men, subject to the human will. Peace in this life, survival in death, perfection in the next life, service in eternity. All these are achieved in spirit now when the creature personality consents, chooses to subject the creature will to the Father's will. And already has the Father chosen to make a fragment of himself subject to the will of the creature personality. Such a creature choice is not a surrender of will, it is a consecration of will, an expansion of will, a glorification of will, a perfecting of will. And such choosing raises the creature will from the level of temporal significance to that higher estate, wherein the personality of the creature son communes with the personality of the spirit father. This choosing of the Father's will is the spiritual finding of the Spirit Father by mortal man, even though an age must pass, and an age is a long time, according to them. Even though an age must pass before the creature's son may actually stand in the factual presence of God on paradise. This choosing does not so much consist in the negation of creature will, quote, not my will, but yours be done, as it consists in the creature's positive affirmation, quote, it is my will that your will be done. That's a big difference, boy. That's like doing it willingly versus being coerced and feeling you have to, you know. And if this choice is made, sooner or later will the God-choosing Son find inner fusion with the indwelling God fragment, while this same perfecting Son will find supreme personality satisfaction in the worship communion of the personality of man and the personality of his maker. Two personalities whose creative attributes have eternally joined in self-willed mutuality of expression, the birth of another eternal partnership of the will of man and the will of God. Yo, part 6, the human paradox. Many of the temporal troubles of mortal man grow out of his twofold relation to the cosmos. Man is a part of nature. He exists in nature, and yet he is able to transcend nature. Man is finite, but he is indwelt by a spark of infinity. Such a dual situation not only provides the potential for evil, but also engenders many social and moral situations fraught with much uncertainty and not a little anxiety. The courage required to effect the conquest of nature and to transcend oneself is a courage that might succumb to the temptations of self pride. The mortal who can transcend self might yield to the temptation to deify his own self consciousness. Now, I'm going to stop right there because we see that a lot these days. You know, some people really think because you can do so much with your mind, a mind that again has been lent to you. You didn't come up with it. You know that. You know what I'm saying? You are using like a frequency or a circuit. You're tuned into that and you didn't create it. We all know that. So it's lent to you. And yet and still, because some people make achievements with this mind or can do so much with this mind, can ascend to, you know, high intellectual levels or even material levels. You can manifest so much with your mind apart from God. People think they are God. Like, you know, like I'm doing this. And they shut off, like they not even acknowledging you didn't come up with none of this, and they carry on anyway. But that's something you got to really be aware of, that pride of self, because of what you might achieve intellectually. It's a slippery slope. The mortal dilemma consists in the double fact that man is in bondage to nature while at the same time he possesses a unique liberty, freedom of spiritual choice and action. On material levels, man finds himself subservient to nature, while on spiritual levels, he is triumphant over nature and over all things temporal and finite. Such a paradox is inseparable from temptation, potential evil, decisional errors, and when self becomes proud and arrogant, sin may evolve. The problem of sin is not self-existent in the finite world. Basically, it don't have to happen just because you live on a finite world. The fact of finiteness is not evil or sinful. The finite world was made by an infinite creator. It is the handiwork of his divine sons, and therefore it must be good. It is the misuse, distortion, and perversion of the finite that gives origin to evil and sin. I'm going to skip down a little bit. Of all the dangers which beset man's mortal nature and jeopardize his spiritual integrity, pride is the greatest. Courage is valorous, but egotism is vainglorious and suicidal. Reasonable self confidence is not to be deplored. You can have reasonable self confidence. Man's ability to transcend himself is the one thing which distinguishes him from the animal kingdom. Pride is deceitful, intoxicating, and sin breeding, whether found in an individual, a group, a race, or a nation. It is literally true. Pride goes before a fall. Part 7, The Adjuster's Problem. Uncertainty with security is the essence of the paradise adventure. Uncertainty in time and in mind, uncertainty as to the events of the unfolding paradise ascent. Security in spirit and in eternity, security in the unqualified trust of the creature son and the divine compassion and infinite love of the universal Father. So, yeah, man. Uncertainty with security is the essence of the paradise adventure. That's something else. It's a adventure in faith, man. Like, I don't know what it's just gonna happen next, but God got it. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna close this out. This little paragraph right here. May I admonish you to heed the distant echo of the adjuster's faithful call to your soul. The indwelling adjuster cannot stop or even materially alter your career struggle of time. The adjuster cannot lessen the hardships of life as you journey on through this world of toil. The divine indweller can only patiently forbear while you fight the battle of life as it is lived on your planet. But you could, if you only would, as you work and worry, as you fight and toil, permit the valiant adjuster to fight with you and for you. You could be so comforted and inspired, so enthralled and intrigued, if you will only allow the adjuster constantly to bring forth the pictures of the real motive, the final aim, and the eternal purpose of all this difficult uphill struggle with the commonplace problems of your present material world. Yo, a word, man. The soul food. Presented by a solitary messenger of Orvanton,